Hello, my name is Chris Wengert. I'm a student in Daniel Abbott's Bringing EDPS class, and this is my application video. My philosophy of education is that I must promote critical literacy in the classroom. My students must be able to question the world around them as I guide them through major inquiries. I must pay attention to my students' needs, be it because of differences and/or learning styles. I must provide students with every resource that they need in order to get a proper education. I must provide proper structure and examples for students to learn off of. Scaffolding. All students must feel welcome. The classroom is a safe place. The first section that I wanted to talk about was modeling. Modeling is something that is very important to me and I promise to use in my classroom a lot. Peer modeling is when someone who models an action or behavior that is considered a peer of the observer. A peer model exhibits similarity in either age, sex, background, or experience. A peer model is usually not 100% right and oftentimes makes mistakes. An expert model is someone who models an action or behavior that is considered an expert in the subject that is being modeled. Usually exhibits the subject perfectly. Can be the teacher, usually does not share many characteristics with the observer. Vicarious reinforcement is when the response increases in frequency when another person is observed being reinforced for that response. And finally, behavioral modeling is modeling a certain behavior. Students oftentimes respond to this very easily. In my experience, both peer modeling and expert modeling can be very, very helpful. Expert modeling as a teacher I think is incredibly important, especially in an English classroom where you must model things like good reading skills, correct ways to interpret a text, and various other instruments of that nature. In order to organize this and put these terms into proper alignment with each other, I'm going to organize them. Peer models are oftentimes peer models oftentimes first learn from expert models. They then grasp the concept and are able to model themselves. Peer models do not usually model the subject perfectly. The expert models provide that perfect modeling that students require. Vicarious reinforcement happens when a peer model is praised for the work and the observer increases in frequency the action that the peer model was praised for. This is, for example, if a student is reading and he does a sticky note in his book and the teacher is like, "Wow, good job, Jake. You put that sticky note. That was the exact way you were supposed to do it." And then the observer, the one person watching Jake, then therefore starts putting those sticky notes in their book. That's vicarious reinforcement. Behavior modeling is a form of peer and/or expert modeling. Both experts and peers can model behaviors that a person can emulate. I'm now going to put these terms in context with my philosophy of teaching, and in my philosophy of teaching, I think that modeling is incredibly important. It's going to be the mainstays in my classroom. I think by providing expert modeling in the classroom, I show them how to engage in critical literacy. Peer models can be used in order to help students help one another and fulfill their individual learning needs. However, modeling can be the best type of learning style for some, while others might not gain anything from it. Vicarious reinforcement is a great tool to help students work properly. Modeling is a way that I can provide good examples to help students. Modeling is so incredibly important in the English classroom, as I said. Showing them the proper reading skills as well as the skills they need to engage critically can all be done very effectively through modeling. I will definitely use modeling in the classroom a lot. For example, as I said earlier, if I'm trying to show reading skills to these students, I can basically do it myself. Or writing skills. I think a lot of teachers pass over the idea of showing writing. When you assign a writing assignment, I think that teachers should do the writing assignment as well. I think that's great modeling and can really help the students. Modeling definitely works in my classroom and I hope to use it a lot. In order to put this in proper context, I think it's best to regulate and ask some questions. When is the best time to use peer modeling? I find that in small group situations where students are with only maybe 4 or 5 students, peer modeling can really shine. If students are connected to those students, if they can interact with each other in a small group setting, they can actually see the peer modeling and really gain something from it. The best time, expert modeling can really happen always, especially in an English classroom. if we're doing a writing assignment, as I said, teachers should be able to write. If we're doing a reading assignment, teachers should read. Basically, I feel like an English teacher's job is to always be an expert model. In what situation is expert modeling a hindrance to learning, peer modeling? I don't know if it's ever actually a hindrance. Expert modeling, I think, can always be helpful. However, there are some times when I think that students do need to just do it for themselves and just figure it out for themselves. Peer modeling, if students aren't responding to their peers, that can be hard. Do all students respond to vicarious reinforcement? I wouldn't say so, because some students really, they just don't care that somebody else is getting praised or praised for work. They really don't. That's why you need to be careful and have direct instruction as well as this kind of thing. Some students flat out just don't respond to vicarious reinforcement. We're going to move on to individual differences, something that's very close to my heart, something I've dealt with a lot in the past. Individual differences, there are 4 terms that I'm going to be talking about. Students with special needs are students who are different enough from their peers that they require specially adapted instructional materials and practices to maximize their learning and achievement. Learning disabilities are deficiencies in one or more specific cognitive processes, but not in overall cognitive functioning. ADHD is a specific learning disability. It's a attention deficit hyperactivity disorder marked by inattention, hyperactivity, impulsive behavior, or some combination of these characteristics. On the other end of the spectrum, you have giftedness, students who exhibit abilities above the learning curve. Not to say that students with ADHD can't exhibit giftedness, it's just giftedness is more of, it's probably directly opposed to learning disability. We're going to move on and put these together in context with one another in organizing them. In order to put these terms in context with one another, we want to organize them and connect them. Students with special needs may have learning disabilities and or physical disabilities. ADHD is a disorder that can lead to having trouble in reading, comprehension, and writing skills. It can lead to further learning disabilities. Giftedness can fall under the category of students with special needs, as students who display giftedness may need individual education and tutoring in order to maximize their giftedness. Oftentimes, if you lead them in a regular classroom, they'll just feel bored and not be able to focus on the task at hand. I'm now going to connect these terms to my philosophy of teaching, as one of the key components of my classroom will be understanding students with individual needs and understanding individual differences and how to cater to them. I find that incredibly important. I must be able to work with students that need more individualization and come up with learning methods that best suit them. This works for both learning disabilities and giftedness. For example, I must be able to work with students with ADHD and come up with ways for them to maximize their learning. I've dealt with a lot of students with special needs in my past. I've volunteered at various organizations with students like this. That's why I think it's, for me personally, in my philosophy of education, I really want to be able to help these students and make them, I'm a big fan of inclusion. I want to include them in the classroom. I want them to be able to be equals with the other students. This means incredible amount of individualized education. That's basically the key to maximizing students' learning that have these individual differences. Because if I'm not helping these students with all their individual needs, then I'm not doing my job as a teacher. My job is not to teach to the masses, it's to teach the individual. That's why individual differences is so important to me. And finally, I have a couple questions about individual difference. What are some of the best ways to individualize teaching? I actually have not taught yet, so I don't know the specific methods, but I think it's really just talking to the students, understanding what they need, and focusing your attention that way. How does a teacher best help students with ADHD? I've heard many different things on that. Giving something them to focus on, maybe something to play with in their hands, or like just to twirl around their fingers. I've heard people use those techniques. What are the best ways to handle gifted students? Once again, I feel individual attention is the best, and focusing that will help these gifted students stay interested in the subject matter. Who should teachers work with in order to get the best education for students with learning disabilities? This is basically you should have a special education specialist at your school. You should be working with them and helping them out. In conclusion, I hope to use various methods, terms, and concepts from these 3 units in my classroom. I will use them to help push critical literacy and create an individualized classroom where all students feel welcome. I think that in order to be the best teacher I can be, I must listen to the students first of all and use these terms and concepts as a guide to helping students reach their full potential. Questions, comments, thoughts about life and or in general? Thank you so much for your time.